Our winners and losers from SEC Week 12. Who's still in the playoff hunt and who may be completely out of this thing? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show. It's our Week 12 winners and losers, the latest on the SEC teams in the playoff projections. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to Everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return over at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, we always start with our winners, so let's start with our winners of the weekend in the SEC. We'll get to our losers in just a bit. And first off, we got to start with, one of the biggest winners of the weekend. How about over at Georgia, as Carson Beck was slated as, I guess you'd call it the SEC game of the week, really the college football game of the week in terms of ranked on ranked, but it was number 12 Georgia beating number 7 Tennessee on Saturday night, 31-17, and a big reason for the win, the return of the Georgia offense. Tip of the cap to Mike Bobo for calling a heck of a game, but how about Carson Beck playing one of his best games of the season, 25 of 40 passing, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Also had 32 rushing yards and a rushing score as well. He had no Trevor Etienne in the backfield. He was ruled out before the game. Had some decent runs from the freshman Nate Frazier, but it was largely some of those big throws from Carson Beck that helped get the win in this one. And you keep in mind, Georgia trailed 10-0 after the first quarter. They would go on a 31-7 run over the next 3 quarters to put this one away. And it was Carson Beck's first game without an interception since Georgia's win over Auburn back on October 5th. Carson Beck is 3rd in the SEC in passing yards, 4th in touchdown passes. Kirby Smart saying after the game, we've got a good quarterback. It's just hard to play on the road in this league, and I keep saying that. That was his explanation for why they had those struggles that Carson Beck and the offense had. They were playing on the road in tough environments. Now they get to playing back at home in the friendly confines of Sanford Stadium, things went a lot better. And thus concludes Georgia's SEC slate this year. They're done. They're 6-2 in the conference. They will finish the season at Sanford Stadium versus UMass next week, and then Georgia Tech. So a strong chance to finish 10-2. And we'll see if that gets them to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Man, there's so many tiebreakers and stuff that can come into play on who will go to Atlanta. But Georgia's right there in the mix. They did what they needed to do. Speaking of SEC contenders, another winner of the weekend. How about the Texas defense? The 3rd-ranked Texas Longhorns took down Arkansas 20-10 on Saturday in Fayetteville. It was a game that wasn't pretty for Steve Sarkisian and the offense, but it was the defense that got the job done. Texas held Arkansas to just 231 total yards of offense, forced 2 turnovers, including a Jahdae Brown interception and a Michael Taft fumble recovery. Longhorns had 6 sacks on the day, including 2 from their freshman Colin Simmons. He's been a monster this year. Alfred Collins, he had a big day on the D-line, 7 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for a loss. And this is what makes the Longhorns a title contender, because even on a day where their offense isn't great, they showed this defense can pick them up and play absolutely dominant. Now with 2 weeks left to go in the regular season, check out some of the stats on this Texas defense. They are number 4 in the country in points allowed at just 11.9 per game. They are now number 1 in the country in yards allowed per game. Just 249 yards a game this Texas defense is allowing. They're 7th in the country in interceptions with 15. Look, I get it. As far as SEC schedules go, they got the luck of the draw. They didn't get a brutally tough one, but they're taking care of business. They're doing what they need to do, winning in pretty decently tough environments. So next up, the Longhorns return home to face an inferior Kentucky team. And if they can take care of business there this weekend, they will travel to College Station for a massive season finale against Texas A&M, and likely a trip to Atlanta for the SEC championship game on the line in that one. Another winner of the weekend. How about LaNorris Sellers, man? 21 of 30, 353 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 45 rushing yards. Threw the go-ahead touchdown pass to Rocket Sanders with 15 seconds left as South Carolina beat Mizzou 34-30. And the Gamecocks are now 7-3 on the season, 5-3 in the SEC. What a massive win for Shane Beamer's crew. And outside of a lopsided home loss against Ole Miss, man, they were this close to beating LSU and Alabama, and really could be 8-2 or 9-1 at this point. But if you're a Gamecock fan, how excited do you have to be about the future of LaNorris Sellers in Columbia? He redshirted last year, got a little bit of taste of playing time, but as a starter this year, man, he seems to be getting better and better every week. Carolina now on a 4-game win streak. And shout out to Shane Beamer. From our buddy Brad Crawford, he tweeted this out. Since the start of the 2022 season, Shane Beamer now has 6 wins over top 25 teams. That's more than Ryan Day, more than Lane Kiffin, more than Brian Kelly, more than Lincoln Riley, James Franklin. I mean, give Shane Beamer his props, man. He's been a heck of a coach, doing more with less, I think you would say, at South Carolina, just given the resources. Next up, Gamecocks, they get Wofford. They'll beat them. And then they're at Clemson. Going to be a tough one. I think at this point, they won't make the college football playoff, but if they finish strong, they win their bowl game, this South Carolina team is a team we should be talking about as an absolute playoff contender in 2025. A great job by Beamer and his coaching staff. Speaking of coaches, how about another winner of the weekend, Billy Napier, and a brutal schedule for the Gators. Billy Napier emerges this week, beats LSU 27-16 in the Swamp. This Florida team, they have continued to play hard for Napier. They are now 5-5 on the season, and Napier's a win over FSU away from getting to 6-6 in bowl eligibility. Now, they'll get Ole Miss this weekend. I don't know if they'll beat them, but certainly should beat Florida State as bad as they are in their season finale. LSU had won 5 straight against Florida, 9 of the previous 11 in this series. But, man, the Swamp was rocking. That defense got after LSU, particularly in the second half. 7 sacks on the night. LSU had been sacked 6 times all year. Shamar James, Tyreek Sapp, they just wreaked havoc all night on LSU defensively. And Billy Napier now 16-19 as Florida coach, 9-14 in SEC play. Seems to have saved his job. He got the vote of confidence from Scott Strickland a couple weeks ago. And you got to wonder if Florida's future starts to look a little brighter next year. DJ Lagway starting to emerge as a strong quarterback. Won it this week with his arm. Remember, had the hamstring injury. Didn't even need to run. We've seen running quarterbacks have success against LSU. He didn't even need to do it. He did it with his arm. And if you tie Lagway with Napier and expect both of them back next year, if the Gators can hit the portal and recruit well, maybe you start to buy some stock in the Florida Gators next year. Now, I will say, Gators have a tough draw next year. They get Tennessee at home. They get Texas at home. They get FSU at home. But they have road trips at Miami, at LSU, at Ole Miss, and at Texas A&M. Again, on the surface, that looks brutal. We'll see what those teams look like next year. But put this down as one of Napier's more impressive wins in his tenure at Florida so far. A few other winners of the weekend. Some guys who played cupcakes, so we'll kind of run through these. Jalen Milroe at Alabama. They beat Mercer 52-7. Milroe with 2 touchdown passes, 43 yards rushing, and a rushing touchdown. He now has 15 passing touchdowns on the season, 17 rushing touchdowns on the year. So a true dual threat. In Bama, they have a road game at Oklahoma and a home game against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. And if they win those, they will finish 10-2 with a chance to go to Atlanta and play for the SEC title in year 1 of Kalen DeBoer in Tuscaloosa. Pretty outstanding. Another winner of the weekend, Marcel Reed at Texas A&M, as the Aggies roll New Mexico State 38-3. Marcel Reed throws for 268, 2 passing touchdowns, also had a rushing touchdown as well. Good bounce back for Reed after that tough road loss at South Carolina. And now for A&M, a road trip at Auburn this Saturday night. If they can get this one, they will be 9-2, and all eyes will be on that Texas versus Texas A&M game on November 30th in College Station. Another winner of the weekend. He has not been in this category much this year, but how about Payton Thorne? He beats up Louisiana Monroe. Auburn wins 48-14. Thorne's best game of the season. 22 of 32, 286 passing yards, 5 touchdown passes. Kind of given a dual winner this week with Cam Coleman, the true freshman. 8 catches, 100 yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. Nice big day for him. And Auburn gets their 4th win of the season. And we're in late November. It's crazy to think Auburn has only won 2 games since back on September 15th. That's 2 wins in over 2 months of football. 4-6 overall. They host A&M next, and then it's at Bama. And look, weird things can happen at night at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Let's see if Auburn can get up for the Aggies this Saturday night. And one more winner of the weekend, Kentucky safety Jordan Lovett had not 1 but 2 interceptions in Kentucky's win over Murray State. He also had 2 tackles. Kentucky had not won a game in a month and a half, not since the upset of Ole Miss. They went the entire month of October without a win. So props to Jordan Lovett getting it done. Kentucky improves to 4-6. They're at Texas this week, then home versus Louisville. A rough season for Mark Stoops and company. And, man, it looked like the women's basketball team had more people in the stands on Saturday night than Kentucky had Saturday afternoon there at Kroger Field. So, tough finish. Look, if they can do the impossible, pull off an upset of Texas, ruin, kind of Steve Sarkisian's big season this year at Texas. Crazier things have happened, but not putting my money on it. But, look, they get up. Kentucky seems to get up for the ranked games, right? They give Georgia all they can handle. They beat Ole Miss, so we'll see what Kentucky looks like this week. But if they win that one, I like them against Louisville. That would get you to 6-6, but that is borderline miracle territory. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll get you our losers of the weekend in SEC Week 12. Don't go anywhere. All right, first I want to remind you guys, our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like us, the fans who are first in the parking lot and are last to leave. We see you. And you know what else gave us a bit of SEC fan fuel this week? How about that exciting 4th quarter between South Carolina and Mizzou? I needed a 5 Hour Energy to keep up through that one into the night. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy available at 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5, shipped nationwide at 5hourenergy.com. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day as we bring you all the latest news and tidbits to give you our opinions on the SEC. It's been a wild season, man. Crazy to think we only got 2 weeks left. But look, 12-team playoff, a lot of people's postseason hopes still alive. Some are dead, though. And one of those is LSU head coach Brian Kelly. First 3-game losing streak in his tenure at LSU. And the Tigers have now lost consecutive games at A&M, home versus Bama, and at Florida now. They fall to 6-4 on the season, 3-3 in the SEC. LSU is now out of the top 25 for the first time since October of 2022. They had been ranked in 36 straight polls. And a lot of folks on social media are saying, could Brian Kelly be on the hot seat? Could LSU fire him? Well, the reality is his buyout is close to $60 million. I think LSU is handcuffed to Brian Kelly. They're just going to have to figure this one out together. And look, Brian Kelly's a good football coach, right? He showed that many years at Central Michigan, Cincinnati, at Notre Dame. Look, nobody had really done what he'd been doing at Notre Dame, basically winning 10 games every year at Notre Dame. That's a tough place to win. But is it just the chance that he's not cut out for the SEC, that this is bigger boy football and he can't get it done at this level? Well, he had a moment on Saturday, caught on camera, chewing out his wide receiver, Chris Hilton, tearing into him. You compound that with the clip of him pounding on the table and the loss to USC in week 1. Just been a lot of moments that have not been great for Brian Kelly. And again, a lot of people in Baton Rouge questioning the future of the program and can he turn this thing around? Now, the team did look pretty good for a stretch of the season. They rode a 6-game win streak at one point. They crushed Arkansas and Fayetteville. They pulled out an overtime win over Ole Miss, got a tough road win at South Carolina. But LSU's just looked absolutely awful in their past 3 games, particularly the offense, which has only scored 23, 13, and 16 in these past 3 games, while the defense has been just as bad, giving up 38 points, 42 points, and then 27 to this Florida team. Brian Kelly is not guaranteed to win these last 2 games of the season. They host a spicy Vanderbilt team with Diego Pavia this weekend before they finish with Oklahoma. Now, they get them both at home. If Brian Kelly can find a way to win those, they will finish 8-4, maybe win a bowl game, and you get to 9 wins. It'd be a nice finish. Of course, the one plus for LSU is currently holding onto a top 10 recruiting class they expect to sign in just a couple weeks. Kelly's going to need that and a spectacular transfer portal for 2025 to get this bad taste out of LSU's fans' mouth. Now, the good news is also with the poor play in recent weeks, you got to wonder if Harold Perkins, got hurt early in the year, may be leaning towards coming back. Emory Jones, right tackle, may be thinking of coming back. They can, rumors they could slide him to guard next year. Garrett Nussmeier seems like he may come back. Now, this is sitting with holding the number 1 quarterback in the country, and Bryce Underwood, his commitment, who Michigan's coming hard after, but Bryce Underwood is holding firm, saying, I'm coming to LSU. Might be a fun quarterback battle next year. In fact, maybe Brian Kelly can find a way to get both of them on the field. Garrett Nussmeier comes back, more polished, better quarterback as a starter next year. You have plays designed for Bryce Underwood to get him in there. Look, Billy Napier was able to do that at least earlier in the year with DJ Lagway coming in behind Graham Mertz, but we'll see. I'm not going to completely poo-poo Brian Kelly as an SEC coach and say he's done. He's never going to win here because, again, I don't think he's going to get bought out. I think that money is absolutely ridiculously high, and I think, if you didn't read that On 3 article from Andy Staples last week, schools aren't going to be paying these massive buyouts anymore. They're going to just, fire assistant coaches. And for LSU, a big question they're going to have to ask moving into the offseason is Joe Sloan right as their OC? I like Blake Baker as a DC. I think he just needs more Jimmies and Joes back there. But, is Joe Sloan the right answer at OC for LSU? That's going to be a massive question moving into the offseason. All right, another loser of the weekend at Tennessee, quarterback Nico Iamaleava in the loss to Georgia was just 20 of 33 passing, only 167 yards through the air. His longest pass play of the day was a 17-yard pass to Squirrel White. He was sacked 5 times. Offensive line struggled to protect him against that Georgia front as Tennessee lost 31-17 to Georgia. And at times, we've seen this offense just kind of bog down and not have those big explosive plays that we're so used to seeing in the Josh Heupel offense. And that's what happened in this one. 2 of Nico's worst statistical games of the season have come in their 2 losses at Arkansas and now at Georgia. Redshirt freshmen will need to get back on track this week. They will host UTEP and then finish with a road game at Vandy. That's no gimme, but the playoffs still in sights for Tennessee, but they may need some help over these last 2 weeks. We'll get to that here in just a second. Another loser of the weekend. How about Mizzou? Their defense. They give up 34 points, including the game winner in the final minute to South Carolina. Gave up 462 total yards to the Gamecocks. That can't happen. Mizzou drops to 7-3 overall, 3-3 in the conference. Playoffs are out the window now. And after a 6-1 start, they've lost 2 of their last 3. And Eli Drinkwitz, he's got to get wins at Mississippi State and then home against Arkansas to finish strong with a potential 9-win season. A little bit of a step back after their 10-win season a year ago. Still, I think you got to give Mizzou a lot of credit. They had won a ton of one-score games this year and last year. This one just got away from them late, battled back. Again, I think Eli Drinkwitz has done a heck of a job, but just will not be a, big stand on a bridge and hold a trophy type season for him. It'll just be a nice season. It won't be that awesome season last year that was capped with the Cotton Bowl win over Ohio State. All right, one more loser of the weekend. How about at Arkansas? I'm putting Bobby Petrino in here. And look, I know they've had injuries at Arkansas offensively, but this Arkansas offense, they just had their issues in their 20-10 loss at home versus Texas. They had Taylon Green at quarterback. They got back running back Jaquindon Jackson, and yet they were 5 of 12 on third down, just 231 total yards of offense and 2 turnovers. It felt like every time Arkansas's offense tried to get some momentum going, there would be a crucial penalty or a drop pass or an untimely sack that just disrupted the flow of the drive. And that is now 3 straight home games where this Arkansas offense has struggled to do much of anything. They scored just 10 in the loss to LSU. Ole Miss game, they ended up scoring 31, but they had just 10 points at halftime, and it was really out of control already with how bad the defense was. And they scored just 10 points at home in this one. And really, when you look at it. They did score 58 on the road against Mississippi State, who is the worst team in the conference, but they've failed to score 20 points in 4 of their SEC games this year. 20 points. Got to wonder if Bob Petrino's playbook may be getting a little stale in the year 2024 after all the talk we liked about, what they had this offseason, bring in Taylor Green, bringing in Jaquindon Jackson, who was leading the SEC at one point rushing. So we'll see what happens with the future of Sam Pittman, but Arkansas stumbling here on the backstretch of this season. We'll see what they do to finish things off. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC. What's the latest college football playoff picture look like for the SEC? We'll get to that here coming to you in just a second. First, I want to remind you guys, today's episode presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You can get ready to tackle all the college action, NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, if you bet $5, you will get 150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app is going to give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is at FanDuel.com. Of course, all the college games up there as well. I encourage you to go check out all the SEC action. It is over at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at the Game Time app. Get your butt out to an SEC game. You got 2 weeks left of the regular season, and you can do so with the Game Time app. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks and makes getting tickets to see your favorite SEC teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks is going to filter out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Their curation process makes it easier for you to save more on all sporting events. That you can use the all-in pricing feature. I like that when you have to toggle it on, but it's going to show you your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Of course, the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, get $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, final segment here on Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. A few more tidbits before we call it a show. Let's dive right back into it. SEC Nation announced where they're headed for their Week 13 show, and that will be this weekend, Austin, Texas, as the #3 Longhorns will host the upset-minded Kentucky Wildcats. Longhorns 9-1, heavy favorites against the 4-6 Wildcats, but this is one of those games where Texas has everything to lose and Kentucky has nothing to lose. ESPN FPI giving the Longhorns a 94.7% chance to win this, but see if Kentucky can pull off the upset. So we'll be out there. It'll be fun to see the SEC Nation crew as well in this one. All right, the latest on the college football playoff. ESPN updated their projected college football playoff rankings following the Week 12 action, and big topic was what happened with Georgia, right? Beating down Texas and then beating down Tennessee. Where would they go? Well, here's a look at the ESPN updated college football playoff projections as of Sunday. They got Oregon still #1, Ohio State #2, Texas 3, at Penn State 4, Indiana 5, Notre Dame 6, Miami 7, and then here's the run of SEC teams. Alabama 8, Ole Miss 9, Georgia 10, Tennessee 11, and Boise State 12. Now, that's great, right? All those SEC teams, 5 SEC teams in the top 12. Well, it's important to note that that projection is for the rankings and not the final bracket. Here's where it gets stupid, right? In this scenario, Tennessee would be a top 12 team, but they would be left out of the college football playoff because Boise State, who's 12, they steal a spot, and then the Big 12 champion would also receive an automatic berth. So, they give that stupid free pass to the largest non-Power 4 team, and then, the Big 12 champ, they get in, automatic berth. So, Vol fans, not the best of news. ESPN stable of writers, all 13 of them have Tennessee projected to not make the college football playoff field. Tennessee, of course, was picked as a preseason favorite to make the college football playoff, with it being 12 teams now. But man, like, how disappointing would that be? Greg Sankey would be raising some hell, right? To have a team ranked in the top 12, but not make the playoff because, we got to give the stupid Boise State, they get in, and then the Big 12 champ, they get in. That's an automatic qualifier because they're not in the top 4, but they're conference champions, so they automatically get a seat at the table. It's just silly. I've said this all along. If the idea is to get the 12 best teams in, just take the teams ranked 1 through 12 at the end of the year. Stop with the foolishness about moving, conference champ moves to automatically their number, top 4 team. No, stupid. We don't do that in college basketball. We don't do that in any other sport. It's frustrating. All right, a few other SEC tidbits here before we get out of here. Kentucky, rough news for them. They announced redshirt senior linebacker De'Aaron Jackson suffered an injury and will miss the rest of the season. He suffered it 3 weeks ago in the game against Auburn. Led the Wildcats defense and tackles in 2022 and 2023. He was on with us at SEC Media Days. Great kid. Tough loss for Kentucky, and his season is officially over. All right, some recruiting news over at Georgia. They hosted Bear Alexander, former signee of theirs who transferred to USC and then once again entered the transfer portal. He was back in Athens on Saturday and trying to figure out where his next landing spot will be. Well, according to 24/7, they list Alabama, LSU, Texas, and Georgia all as potential landing spots for the Big D lineman in Bear Alexander. One other tidbit, Kirby Smart Company picked up a commitment, 3-star tight end in the class of 2026, Lincoln Keys, committed to the Bulldogs over the weekend. Other recruiting tidbits over at Ole Miss, they flipped a top 10 interior offensive lineman away from LSU in Devin Harper. He'd been committed to LSU, rated the number 6 interior O-lineman according to 24/7 Sports, a top 100 player. He must have not liked what he saw from LSU over the weekend. I always think that's never the best way to phrase that because, LSU's offensive line struggled. If anything, Devin Harper sending the message you could go to LSU and start immediately and go play there and help their O-line. But nonetheless, he flipped over to Ole Miss, who had a bye week this week. They did not play. Over at Alabama, they suffered a decommitment of one of the top running backs in the 2025 class. Anthony Rogers, a top 10 running back in this class, reopened his commitment on Sunday, naming Georgia and Ohio State as his finalists. So sounds like he's not going to Bama. Going to pick either Georgia or Ohio State. He's the number 8 running back in the country, the number 10 player from the state of Alabama. Over at Texas A&M on Sunday, they saw their highest-rated player in the class of 2025 flip to the Big Ten. Husan Longstreet, been committed to the Aggies since April. And after an unofficial visit to USC on Saturday for their game against Nebraska, decided to stay close to home. He flipped his pledge to Lincoln Riley and USC. He's the number 6 quarterback in the class of 2025, the number 34 player in the state of, or in the country rather, the number 2 player in the state of California. His decision to flip to USC set off a chain reaction. Julian Lewis, a fellow 5-star quarterback, reopened his commitment as well. So the Aggies 2025 class still ranked number 10 in the country, but missing a big-time quarterback now in their signing class. There you have it. That's the latest news going on around the conference. And thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to every Gators. Keep coming back and checking us out. We'll have some great guests along the way this week, preview some of the big games happening this weekend. There's not a whole ton of big games happening, but some interesting ones. Some ones with some great storylines and some ones with some SEC teams still trying to stay alive for both the SEC championship game and the college football playoff. Of course, Ole Miss at Florida should be interesting. Vandy at LSU. Kentucky at Texas. Can they pull off the upset? And, Alabama at Oklahoma. I don't know so much if that, if Oklahoma can put up a fight against Bama. A&M at Auburn. I said it before. I think the Tigers can certainly give A&M some fits. We'll see what happens. But one of those weeks where the matchups don't look sexy, but you just know the way the season's been going, somebody's going to pull off an upset because we've seen an upset just about every week in the conference. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Subscribe to us on podcast form, iTunes, Spotify, whatever you listen to, and give us a like on YouTube. make sure you're subscribed, checking out our video version of the show each and every day. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Come on back and check us out right here on Locked On SEC.